Hey, Jason Rice here. Another episode of LotParty. Again, what this episode's about, and what this show's about, LotParty. If you ever worked at a dealership, we called it a LotParty at our dealership, and I know a lot of markets do, where basically we get all the sales staff, the porters, we get out on that physical lot and move things around, maybe get the cars to the front and the trucks in the back, or put cars in special spots, or at this time of the year, it's maybe snowing out and we got to plow and clean off the cars. So we call it a LotParty. Get everything out there, get the cars standing tall. So what this show's about, again, is virtually what are we doing online, virtually with our inventory, with our marketing, with our strategies, and so forth. And I like to spend a lot of time focusing on inventory individually. There's a lot of processes behind inventory management, a lot of things you could be doing to tweak it, and that's what previous LotParty episodes have been about. But just here recently, there's a magazine out, headline, it was in December, and I'm kind of peeking at it, inventory management strategies, going into next year and stuff was kind of the headline. And I was reading through it, and one of the experts that they had in there, kind of what they said concerned me. And so not that they're wrong, again, just based on the information I see, the trends I see, and kind of the theories that I want to throw out to you, I think it's kind of misguided direction or advice for dealers to do with trying to improve ROI or your grosses on inventory management. This was wrapped around new cars, but I'm going to wrap used cars into this conversation too. One of the biggest challenges I have with dealerships is trying to get them to not just look at how much volume they're doing and average gross profit. Now I know that might sound silly because that's where a lot of these managers' checks come from. How their pay plans are worked is based off of volume and average gross profits. But once you start managing actually at a more of an efficiency level and turning that inventory, getting both gross and volume, it's looking at total, what they call velocity, looking at a total profit margins, not just for that department, but the ripple effect through the whole of dealership between finance, additional opportunities, and so forth. So that's what I want to go over today. The biggest challenge I think with inventory management is, again, looking at every used car the same. A lot of times, or any car, new and used. Again, this conversation was on new, and I'm going to quote some of this stuff. I'm going to transition it to new and used, but trying to make $1,500 to $2,000 a car is not a bad thing, or even more. And it's not that it isn't possible, or making $3,000 a car isn't a bad thing, or it's not impossible. Like they always said, MSRP or sticker price is the best price, and I understand all that. But to drive margins at a dealership, one of the things, especially again going back to used car management, is trying to get them to understand looking at percentages. Percentages are easier to capture than a raw number. And what I mean by that, if I have $2 million in inventory, and if I can get a 10% return, I'm making $200,000 on that inventory each month, and over almost $2.5 million for a year just on the front end profitability of that inventory. So not including back end and so forth. So if I can look at a percentage and approach each car as a percentage base, and where the obstacle comes in is a lot of these cheaper cars. And I see managers wholesaling cars that are nice, $8-10 cars. Maybe not now this time of year with tax season, because we're January 10th here, so tax season's around the corner and here. But a lot of times they end up wholesaling a car because they can't, after recon and stuff, they're not going to make their $2,000 on the car, so they get rid of it. But if you actually look at your inventory as a whole, again, your total average investment out there, your total investment out there, maybe you got $1 million or $2 million in inventory, you can get a 10% return. So if you break it down, each car to get 10%, it's easier to do that. So for an example, an $8,000 retail car, 10% profit's $800. So you're not going to make, maybe you can make $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 on that car, go for it. But even an $800 deal, if you're going for that 10% spread and that 10% margin, is not a bad deal. So don't pass up a lot of those cars. And I'm going to go into the topic of this new car. I'm going to kind of look on the screen here because I want to read the question to the expert and then again the reply. And it says, how are the recent slowdowns of the pace of new vehicle sales and the ongoing compression of dealership margins affecting dealerships' current inventory strategies? And that expert, I don't know their name, but, and again, I'm not going to name names anyways, but they said the new car market is still hovering around near 2015 levels, which was a record year for sales. So we're seeing a high plateau. Now, again, there is a record new year this year, but I want you guys to understand the actual retail sales was down like 1.4%. So the retail, what we do with dealers as dealers, that was down. It's the fleet cars that help increase that level. But he continues to say there are two ways to help margins. First, sell larger vehicles, and second, sell vehicles that are fully loaded. Either will increase dealerships' margins, and it looks like buyers are comfortable with more expensive vehicles since transaction prices are at a record high. Now, I agree with that. Transaction prices, obviously, there's the proof there that those are record high, but it's also because the spread of banks going 72 and even 80, 84 months on loans, and leasing is huge. The penetration on lease is huge. So that's why those records are high. But I deal with a lot of Highline stores on new car management. I got a Highline store. Matter of fact, it's an Infinity store, and they're struggling with. They had a lot of higher dollar cars with more equipment, and those cars weren't selling. The cheaper cars with less equipment were selling. And we're talking about things like navigation. Is it as important? This is, again, affinity. And yeah, it is important. A lot of people want to pay for it, but a lot of people like myself, I use my phone. We got a nav system in the car, but most of the time I plug it in my phone before I'm even out to the car and just hit go, and I run it through there because I'm Bluetooth and everything. So, that feature isn't as important to me, or even iPads. My kids have pads all the time, and, rear entertainment maybe isn't as important as it was to me 5 years ago with my kids. So the other thing with that is the fact that higher dollar cars, to make your 10% on $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 car, or a $40,000 truck instead of a $30,000 truck, again, 10%. It's hard to make $5,000 on a $50,000 car, $6,000 on a $60,000 car. There's less buyers out there for the higher dollar cars. Plus, it's harder to take that 10% spread. And I'm going to tell you, I'm actually going to show a chart here. One of the things we track with our dealerships, and at least on inventory management on used cars, is what we call inventory efficiency. And that's really the goal. What we try to do when we help our dealerships is, and when I was traveling with vAuto helping dealerships, a lot of times they would have a system and they say, hey, Jason, this is great, and I've been using this tool for a while, but my sales hasn't increased and my grosses are the same. And maybe they're selling, I don't know, I'm just throwing arbitrary numbers, 60 cars on 1.5 million of inventory, and 100 cars or whatever that average, 100 cars at 1.5 million selling 60. Now they're still selling 60, but when I look at their actual investment dollars, they're not doing it on 1.5 anymore, and they might be doing it on $1 million. So they have $500,000 less tied up in inventory. Instead of carrying 100 cars, they're carrying 75, doing 60. So yeah, even though 60 at $1,500 a copy or $1,800 a copy, whatever their number is, it's the same. It didn't move. So that manager that's paid off of unit and volume and gross, average gross, or their total gross, or even sometimes the dealers, they don't see the growth. But they went from 1.5 million. If it's floor planned, that's $500,000 less at risk paying interest, or it's $500,000 if it's cash in the bank for the dealer. Where'd that $500,000 go? Apply that to your gross. Let's just say your average gross went from $1,500 selling 60 cars down to $1,200 selling 60 cars, but you got $500,000 less and tied up in inventory. That dealership is running more efficiently. They're pushing more units with the same or less dollars. Okay, so that's really where your gross comes in. The improved margins would not be go out and buy more expensive cars, because the math is simple. And I'm going to do a calculator here, but just so I can make sure my numbers are right. But let's just say you have $1.5 million in inventory, okay, and you take a higher, like this gentleman's approach saying, get higher dollar inventory. Let's say you divide that, and your average investment is $20,000. Again, mostly a used car type of lot. That's only 75 units. Let's say that dealership's very efficient. You carry 75, sell 75. Okay. Well, let's take that same 1.5 million in inventory, and let's say my average investment's 15 grand. I drive down that average investment. I got 100 opportunities now. 100 cars, sell 100 cars. It's 25 more cars that me as a dealer, if my average investment's 5 grand less, 25 additional cars that I put on the road at $1,200 a copy or whatever that number is, plus 8 in the back, so another 2 grand total profit. That's not including trades and other things, 25 cars going through my service, making recon dollars and so forth. So the efficiency of running, just again, if you're tapped or floor planned at 1.5 million, 4 million a new, whatever that number is, if you're tapped, the more you can put in and out of there, Okay, and that means driving down that average investment. That's just raw numbers. $20,000 average investment on 1.5 million or $15,000 average investment. You're going to push out more units, which makes your dealership more profitable. So the advice of, and again, maybe they've got other proof that that's a good strategy, that to invest in higher dollar cars that have higher equipment, that have higher dollar stickers, that then makes it harder to get a 10% return. Again, a $1,500 deal is easier to get than a $2,000 deal. So 10%, again, 20 grand average investment, 50 grand average investment. It's easier to get $2,000 a car than it is $5,000 a car when you do it by percentage. So look at your gross profit margins by percentage and try to attack every car. Not that that's your minimum, but if you're only making $800 on an $8,000 car, it's still your 10%. It's a good deal, good enough deal to keep your 10% profit margins rolling. Then drive down that average investment. And I'm going to show you a chart here where we track inventory efficiency, and I'm going to pop it up here, but the green line is their average investment. And every time this average investment goes up, the black line, which is their efficiency grade, goes down. So as average investment, I'm going to roll over here where their average investment is one of the highest at 18.9. The efficiency score dropped down to one of the lowest. But as average investment goes down, their efficiency rate at 16.7, their efficiency rate goes up. They're turning more units with the same dollars. So again, I want to wrap this up, but I read that article and I'm like, man, that's just bad advice. I think, again, based off of what I just showed you here and my theory of how to run an inventory, again, if they've got other stats that kind of back it up, again, yeah, average dollars of cost of a vehicle is going up. A couple factors is manufacturers are driving it up, rebates are getting bigger and actually driving some of that expense down, but lease penetration's bigger, but also the 60 months is now 72 and 84 months, keep those payments the same, so people are stepping up on some of that stuff, but it doesn't mean the dealer's going to be more profitable. Okay, so run your inventory by managing what percentage of gross profit you want to make, not just a flat number, we got to make $1,500 or $2,000 a car, I'm not doing it. Look at the percentage, and then look at your efficiency. How many units are you pushing out on those dollars? You might be selling the same amount of cars at the same gross, but if you can do it on $500,000 less, the dealer is more profitable. When you have a happy dealer, you got a happy employee, and then the profits start coming, and then your pay plan, your paycheck actually gets affected by that. It goes up too. So hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, give me an email at jrice@lotpop.com, 844-LOTPOP-HOR. Give me a call. Hope you enjoyed this and see you next week. Thanks.